Hi guys, welcome to Deep Dive here on Ickonic.com. I will be speaking to a young man called Ritchie later on. He'll be speaking about his experience going through gender reassignment surgery and his experience as a young person being subjected to all this information when he probably needed a bit more care than he was given at the time. It was a fascinating interview, and I want to go through a few kind of things before, so it'll give you a background and an understanding of what's going on here and see if there's anything else going on behind this push of this sort of gender agenda to young people. We've seen it all over the place. Drag queen story time with young kids. That's all over the news, especially in the US.
This is Drag Queen Story Hour. It's your classic children's reading program with a twist. The day's literary leader is a larger-than-life drag queen.
Everybody wave to each other, make a friend next to you, okay?
And we've also seen places like Stonewall put out some information on their Twitter that they've had to retract since then. So, but the first thing I want to talk about is the Tavistock Institute. So the Tavistock Institute have shut one of their, I think it was the only dedicated gender identity clinic for children, and they've shut that recently. So let's give a little bit of background on the Tavistock Institute. It was formed in 1947. And it is an independent, not-for-profit organisation which seeks to combine research in the social sciences with professional practices. Now, what that means is psychology, really, in essence. Our psychology isn't a science, it's a pseudo-science. It's something that you can be tested. You can't whop your brain out and test it there and see who's sort of what personality type. It's a pseudo-science. It's an opinion-given science. It's not an actual science there, but they're trying to wrap it up in the science. And they've kind of got very background that's kind of got a lot of sort of deep dark corners to poke into sometimes. A lot of researchers sort of bring up the Tavistock Institute in relation to mind control and social engineering.
Of course, a psychological operation of this scale leaves a paper trail. There are scientific papers, conference notes, and witnesses who can attest to the truth of what's really going on. But Tavistock and our tyrannical overlords are unconcerned about this.
Recently, we saw the NHS close its one dedicated gender identity clinic, but when you look down it further, you realise that they're closing that one because of pushback against some of the things that they were doing. But actually, what they actually are doing is open up local ones. So a spokesperson said, she said, the current model of care was leaving young people at considerable risk of poor mental health and distress. Having one clinic was not a safe or viable long-term option. So they're not actually closing it to just close it and saying that it's leaving them at risk. It's actually saying we're going to open up local ones. So the Stonewall got in on that last article, and they commented on the closing of this NHS gender identity clinic. They said LGBT rights group Stonewall said it was pleased the NHS was addressing unacceptable wait-in times faced by young trans people to access gender identity. So what the mainstream media have done there, have wrapped that up and made that look like they were closing one down because of the behaviour that was going on. But actually what they're doing is they're kind of rerouting that round and rebranding that as a positive way of getting young kids through quicker. And as we'll see with Ritchie's interview, that was part of the problem, the rush to get these kids through without looking at other areas of their life, of their mental health, their emotional health, and what they're actually saying, and their age, obviously. So then you have Stonewall, who commented on that, coming out with a tweet that said, research suggests that children as young as 2 recognise their trans identity. Yeah, that's where we are. Yet many nurseries and school teachers teach a binary understanding of pre-assigned gender. They're 2 years old. 2 years old. My son's 2 years old. He just wants a lolly and to play with his cars, and sometimes he just calls me by my actual name, but he's definitely not talking about his gender identity at 2 years old. This is absurd, quite clearly and quite obviously, but there is an agenda behind it. It says LGBTQ inclusive and affirming education is crucial for the well-being of all young people. Young people, for me, would mean 13, 14, and I kind of get it speaking about it at that age because you're in a place where you're starting to kind of find out about yourself. But 2, you're still in nappies. So that was Stonewall were commenting on that, and then they had to retract this on the 30th of August. So they said, on the 22nd of July 2022, we put out a tweet that was unclear, relating to gender stereotypes and nursery age children, leading some supporters to ask what we meant. We were commenting on an article written by a parent reflecting on how their child was being cared for at nursery. The parent was worried that their child was being pressured to fit in with stereotypes about boys and girls. We believe that young children should be able to play, explore and learn about who they are and the world around them without having adults impose ideals upon them. But that's what you're doing there. You're imposing this ideal on a 2-year-old and suggesting that they know about their trans identity. That's exactly what you're doing. And that's clearly what's going on there. The tweet was paraphrasing research mentioned in the article, but studies of trans adults that ask about when they first experienced gender dysphoria find that a significant number have their first memory of feeling this aged between 2 and 4. I don't know about you, but I don't remember 2 and 4. And I certainly don't remember thinking about these things when I was 2 and 4, although it was the 80s, so we didn't really know much about these things then. I was thinking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, probably a little bit later on. I wanted to sing Do the Bartman, and I wanted my hair like Bart from The Simpsons. Just to quickly move on, transgender charity Mermaid uses beloved British Mr. Men characters to promote its gender ideology to young. Now you can't tell me that's not aimed at the young. I think it's 7 years old is around about the age that this cartoon and these books are aimed at. 4 to 7, I believe it was. You'd have thought, you know, if I'm going to go for trying to change something up, I'd go for something that doesn't have Mr. and Man in it, because both of them are quite gender-targeted names. Yes, the unexpected crossover, which was a nice pun, which was posted on Mermaid's social media yesterday, has prompted fury online with people accusing the charity of using the characters to appeal to children. I don't think there's any accusations there. I think it's clear that they are doing that. This isn't something that's being pushed by the transgender community at all. Most who are genuinely going through this, will be against this stuff too. And we see the result in someone like Ritchie's story, which will be coming up now, what happens to someone who needs the support and guidance at the time. But when they go in there and looking for the support and guidance, they're pushed into something when they're very vulnerable. So there's a little bit of background for you there. Please remember to enjoy the interview, and this is something that we need to keep an eye on, I believe.